Well, hello there, watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Associate Editor for Politics at the Daily Telegraph, Christopher Hope, and the columnist and broadcaster Steve Richards, who are with us from now until just before midnight, and welcome to both of you. So those front pages, let's start with the Daily Telegraph. It carries a warning for Prime Minister Liz Truss from the IMF with the headline, "Reverse Tax Cuts." Market turmoil requires tough action from the Bank of England. Its chief economist warns, reads the front of the Financial Times. And The Sun covers mortgage fears over inflation rises, their headline, "Bricking it." House price warning as loan rates rise sharply, reads the front of the Times. The front of the Metro carries comments made by the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, at the party conference today, "Don't forgive." While tomorrow's Guardian reads, "A Labour moment. Starmer sets out his plan for a return to power." The Mirror also looks at this story. The headline, "Britain will get its future back." Tomorrow's Express says COVID and flu viruses could wreak havoc on the health service this winter. Its headline, "Twindemic alert, go get your jabs." And the front of the Daily Mail claims to have obtained a photo, they say, shows one of the men convicted of the murder of Stephen Lawrence using a mobile phone in prison. Well, a reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages while you watch our guests. So let's return to them. We're joined by Christopher Hope and Steve Richards. Welcome to both of you. Another set of, markets in turmoil, economy in shock, etc. Talk us through it then, Christopher, if you can. Front page of the FT, for example, tough action required from the Bank of England. And elsewhere, of course, we've heard the IMF suggesting the government should reverse course. So where are we at?
Well, it's all about mortgages, isn't it? So it's the turmoil on the pound, on the financial markets over the weekend and yesterday. I mean, the effect of that has meant that there'll be some kind of action from the Bank of England. This is the chief economist warning, and the concern here that we could see interest rates going up to 6.25% by May. That's a quadrupling in where they are at the moment. And given the scale of some of the mortgage debt some people have nowadays, this is severely worrying. And what is happening here is that the government, through its actions last Friday, and subsequently, is torching its reputation for economic competence. It is trying to hold things steady. It didn't help when Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, went out on the television at the weekend on his broadcast round and talked about there'll be more tax cuts coming without any idea of any degree of discipline, which is what the markets want to see. They want to see cuts from the government. Where will you find these savings? You can't rely on future growth. It's a really worrying time. It seems to me that the government doesn't want to talk about market turbulence, but that's what everyone's facing, and people are feeling insecure about their family wealth, their mortgages, and that's the worry. And that's once that is embedded in people, it'll be hard to shift. These are difficult times for the Conservative Party. They have got time on their side. They need 2 years to get the economy growing. It may be that by that point, people might forgive this wobble in the markets, if it is a wobble, but it could.
Well, the growth mentality that the government was pushing on Friday was partly to try and avoid a deep recession. You know, has it caused that? That's the question. The Sun, for example, bricking it, interest rates to hit 6% next year. Lenders pull 365 mortgage products off the market. The Times also talking about house price warning as loan rates rise sharply, suggesting that property values may fall by 15%. And many people, Steve, suggest actually that the housing market is one of the great drivers of our economy.
Yeah, this is quite extraordinary where we are tonight with this series of dramas, interconnected dramas, for two basic reasons. One, the government, with its bizarre, extraordinary statement on Friday, was moving in one direction, the so-called dash for growth, with incidentally little evidence that what it was doing would lead to growth. And now the Bank of England having to counter with a sort of completely counter policy to reassure the markets and to sort of stifle that hyper energy displayed by Kwasi Kwarteng on Friday. And then for the second reason, the practical consequences of this. They were hailing on Friday this great package to address the cost of living crisis. But as a result of that package, for many people with mortgages, their cost of living crisis is about to deepen. And then, as Chris says, you've got the third kind of broader political factor of economic incompetence within days of what is in effect a new regime. So it is an astonishing evening once again in the many interesting evenings since last Friday.
Well, fascinating front page to the eye. And we'll come on to the Daily Telegraph in just a moment, Christopher. But they say that the Prime Minister and Kwasi Kwarteng ignored officials who warned of markets turmoil, suggesting that Number 10 sources have denied that the PM had a shouting match with the Chancellor 2 days ago over her reluctance to issue a statement reassuring investors as the pound sank and borrowing costs rose. The question of whether they knew or not, I mean, you could look to Rishi Sunak and his warnings about this, which were, laughed off many a front page. So did they listen, and were they warned, and if so, by whom?
There were concerns at the top of the Treasury about the kind of calibre of people who might be advising them. There was seen to be, amongst people close to Kwasi Kwarteng, a kind of Brownite influence amongst these senior people. We saw with the ousting of Sir Tom Scholar, who's the most senior official in the Treasury, and that was almost a kind of message to everybody: it's my way or the highway, from the Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng. The idea of tension in number 2, number 11 and number 10, nothing is new there. It is new to have it so soon in a new regime. We're 3 weeks into this government, and that's what's so alarming, that it has happened so quickly, and these concerns are making themselves known. It is important, I think, for the country that Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss are on the same hymn sheet. And if there's concerns about reassuring the market, well, surely that's what you should be doing if the shares are going southwards. If the pound is going southwards so quickly, it's a big worry. I mean, it's a big concern, and one hopes that there might be some answers coming forward. I do think the market wants to see some measure, some idea of where these cuts might take place, some reassuring that the UK is investable, because that's where we are at the moment.
Well, meanwhile, the IMF has also intervened, Daily Telegraph leading on that. We are closely monitoring recent economic developments in the UK. The bit that's been picked up by the Daily Telegraph for that headline is reverse tax cuts. The statement from the IMF: the November 23rd budget will present an early opportunity for the UK government to consider ways to provide support that is more targeted and re-evaluate the tax measures, especially those that benefit high-income earners. Goodbye to that 45p change then, Steve, do you reckon?
Well, not necessarily, because a U-turn on that scale so soon after proclaiming this great economic revolution would itself be damaging for the government, even if it kind of reassured the markets in a marginal way. Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are in a terrible bind. These kind of sterling crises or semi-crises, however you want to put it, traumatize prime ministers and chancellors. They always do. These two were in power with the most ideological, self-confident display I've ever seen from an incoming prime minister and chancellor. But even that duo will be hit by the trauma of this. And it's very easy to say reverse the tax cuts. And they were a terrible, terrible mistake. But once you've done it, to reverse it, say by November, would be humiliating almost quickly. But spending cuts similarly would be a problem too.
Okay, Christopher, you're shaking your head, so go for it. What will happen in your view, quickly?
I'm agreeing with Steve that there is no way they can reverse these tax cuts. I mean, I think the government could not survive that attack on its credibility. That can't happen. They are now stuck with what they're doing. It is an experiment with the economy never before seen. If it comes off, she wins the next election. If it doesn't, it might bury Tory or orthodox economic thinking for a generation. It's that high. The stakes are so high.
Well, it's also fascinating to watch, if only it wasn't real, I suppose. Yeah, go on. You want to go?
Just very quickly, because I know time is short, but the other option of spending cuts is equally problematic for them, even if that's where they would like to go ideologically. They're pledged to increase defence spending. Are they going to cut the NHS spending? The NHS needs more. What about the social care levy that they're theoretically committed to? The idea that there are huge acres of spending cuts to be made is a myth, as they're about to discover if they try and focus on that.
Well, as I said, there is so much to discuss, is there not? But we will reflect on Sir Keir Starmer's speech to conference after this. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me once again, the Associate Editor for Politics at the Daily Telegraph, Christopher Hope, and the columnist and broadcaster, Steve Richards. Welcome back to both of you. Well, the story that would have been lead, I guess, front page of The Guardian and a number of papers, to be fair, is Sir Keir Starmer's big moment, with a mood, we're told, in Liverpool, Steve, of confidence that, Labour might actually do it this time round.
Yeah, context undoubtedly helps. When you wake up on the day of your speech and you find opinion polls giving you huge leads, that's a massive confidence boost. And it sort of changes the way I think you are perceived as a leader. But that apart, I thought it was an excellent speech, actually. I think it was as well judged and in some ways more ambitious than those of Blair and Harold Wilson, Labour's only election-winning leaders from opposition, pulled off when they were leaders of the opposition. It's not easy. They're very different characters. He's not a great performer, like Blair certainly was and Wilson was at his peak. But I thought it was a wide-ranging speech and, as I say, quite ambitious, although tonally very calm and reassuring. And that's a good combination for a Labour leader.
Well, the Daily Mirror picks up the reassuring part of that. Britain will get its future back with this state-owned energy pledge as well to hopefully cut our bills, it suggests. Well, the Metro goes on, don't forgive. And to be fair, they've got a lot to go at, haven't they, against the Conservatives right now?
Yes, totally. And the idea of don't forgive is what and it's very important to Labour that the voters don't forgive or forget what's happening and the concern that's being generated by these government policies. I was in the hall, maybe like Steve was, in Liverpool today. I thought that it was OK. I thought that the big sell was this great British energy company. If Jeremy Corbyn had announced that, he may have been criticised by the moderate parts of the party. So I think Starmer is using his influence, his the way he's surging in the polls to get things through, which Corbyn may not have got through. Around the place, definitely, the business companies are there. Business is there. The cardigans have gone. The suits are back. It's like New Labour in '96. It's Steve when Steve was there in those days. I mean, it really is. You can almost energise and feel. They can smell power. By the way, a year ago, Boris Johnson bestrode everything below him. People were saying he'd be in charge for 10 years. A year later, it's all gone. A year is a long time in politics, but it's great for Labour now.
Christopher Hope, Steve Richards, thank you both very much indeed. Thank you.